Oh, goodness. Hello, world. What's up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our next guest is a New York Times bestselling author. His books include The Bulletproof Diet and Game Changers, What Leaders, Innovators, and Mavericks Do to Win at Life. He's also the founder of Bulletproof, and its mission is to help people perform better, think faster, and live better. Ladies and gentlemen, please make a ridiculous amount of noise and welcome founder and CEO of Bulletproof, the great Dave Asprey. Come on, do it up. Let's go. Dave, thanks so much for being here and hanging out with us, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I love being in New York.
We love having you right here, right now, man. I just saw, I was following you on Twitter, not stalking, research. It's my job. I saw you guys were just over at Amazon. Was that just happening a couple of minutes ago?
Just a few minutes ago.
Oh, it's so exciting, man.
Yeah, being on Amazon's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That's not your first time doing that before. No, you guys.
That was my second time.
Second time.
But I mean, they've got an operation over there.
Yeah, they got a heck of an operation going on. Yeah, that hot take, Amazon's a big company with a big operation.
No, you got to understand, you go to a lot of times, like, this is pretty legit, but you go backstage and you kind of wonder, their control room looked like NASA. I've never seen a control room like that, even like on Dr. Oz or anywhere. I mean, your control room here is pretty cool. Sorry, guys, but it's not.
Well, we did that on purpose. We saw what NASA had, and we said, we need room to grow. Let's go a notch below NASA. We're one notch below NASA. That's all it is. Yeah. But it's a small notch. Speaking of really exciting things, man, I just saw you're in, was it 5 of the 7 largest grocers now? Bulletproof products are out there.
Yeah.
Places, I think I saw Target, I saw Walmart, I saw a couple other places. That's huge, man. That's amazing. You got to be really excited about that.
We've done about 200 million cups of Bulletproof coffee since I started the company as a blog.
As a blog, dude, that's wild. Did you ever? There's so many things that Bulletproof brand has grown to encompass beyond. I mean, people immediately know it because of Bulletproof coffee. That's the most recognizable. That's the iconic thing about Bulletproof. But it's so much more than that. Did it start at that large of a scale when it began? Did you have a vision for it to be all of these things that it is, the proteins, the all that stuff? What did you think when it began?
I started Bulletproof as a blog to tell people stuff that I wish someone had told me when I was 20 that would have saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars, would have kept me from weighing 300 pounds, and would have kept me from acting like a jerk a lot of the time when I was just hungry. If only I'd known. And then I started making stuff I couldn't buy.
And started making stuff you couldn't buy.
Yeah, and it turns out this mold-free, high-performance coffee, functional coffee, it didn't exist. The market size was 0. Yeah. Like, I want this. I don't want to crash sometimes when I drink my coffee and get the jitters, so I'll make one. And, of course, butter and coffee, no one did that, so that's okay, I'll do that. And then this weird coconut oil extract that became Brain Octane, no one did that. And now these are major, like, billion-dollar categories in Whole Foods, and we put them on the map. Collagen protein, yeah, that was Bulletproof too. And now we're the #1 selling protein bar at Bulletproof, or at Whole Foods. And the cold brew coffee is flying off the shelves, all this crazy stuff. But it all just came from, I don't want to be hungry anymore. I want my brain to work. And I wish someone had just done this for me.
Where did that, we know the motivating emotion, I don't want to be hungry anymore. I want my brain to be better. I want to work. Where did that start? Like, what was that the entire impetus for, not the blog, but you famously lost, I want to say 100, was it over 100?
It was 100 pounds.
It's about 100 pounds. That's an incredible thing for a human being to do, period, full stop, to shed that kind of weight and to motivate themselves and be able to do that. Was there a catalyst? Was it as simple as, I just don't want to be hungry anymore and I want my brain to work?
Well, I had most of the diseases of aging when I was young. At 14, my doctor said, "Oh, you have arthritis in both knees." I'm like, "What the hell?" I thought that was for older people, and I'm a teenager. I was sort of traumatized for a couple days by that. But my knees hurt all the time, and I had 3 knee surgeries by the time I was 22. I hit 300 pounds. They said I was pre-diabetic, high risk of stroke and heart attack before I was 30. I had this cognitive dysfunction, and I was fat. So when you look in the mirror and you're fat, you really don't want to be fat. Anyone who's gained weight knows what I'm talking about. So I said, I'm gonna do what you're supposed to do. I've got this. I go to the gym an hour and a half a day, 6 days a week, half weights, half cardio. I did this for 18 months straight. I skipped Sundays every other day. I didn't care if I was sick. I didn't care if I was tired. I didn't care if I had too many classes. I just went. And I went on this low-fat, low-calorie diet, and I'm at Carl's Jr. with my friends. They're eating double Western bacon cheeseburgers, and I'm eating a salad with no dressing and no chicken. And I just looked around and I'm like, wait a minute. I exercise more than all my friends. I eat less than all my friends. And I could bench press them while they're eating their cheeseburgers, and I'm still fat. It must be because I'm eating too much lettuce. Like that was my mindset.
Overboard on lettuce.
I'm like, I got to eat less. And then I just realized one day, this isn't working. So I started trying things that weren't supposed to work. Like, oh my God, what would happen if I ate more calories, but I shifted the composition of my calories? So I ended up losing, in my early 20s, 50 of my 100 pounds just by cutting out a whole bunch of carbs, going into an early version of the keto diet called the Atkins diet. Problem is, the other 50 pounds took me another 12 years to lose because the problem is what I now call dirty keto. And I was doing that. You can eat pork rinds and diet soda and still go into this ketosis state. So I had to learn, okay, how does the biology work in the body? Fortunately, my degree's in computer science with a subset of artificial intelligence, and I was a computer hacker. So I'm like, if you can hack the internet, how hard could this be? Well, it turns out it's really hard, but it's not that hard.
Said than done.
Like, we don't know everything about the body, not even by a long shot. But right now, the stuff that I popularized in 2014 with the Bulletproof Diet, it is the foundational stuff. Intermittent fasting, where you skip breakfast sometimes. Oh my God, would you believe that you're not that hungry and you lose weight and you feel good and it's actually good for you? Well, the evidence is pretty much in on that. And eating the right kinds of fat instead of just less fat. All these things are now being proven over and over and over. And I just dialed in on that because I was just pissed off at being hangry and hypoglycemic and just not myself.
Were you always, prior to that journey, were you always able to engage that level of discipline in other areas, in other parts of your life? And this was the first time, or was this a whole new, for lack of a better term, journey for you, putting it to work that way?
I was pretty much I was able to focus on things if I was angry about them, or if I just really was interested in them. Otherwise, I just paid attention to nothing. It's typical. This is what happens when you eat too much corn syrup and margarine. Like, your brain doesn't work right. So no, but to me, this was a survival level thing. I'm like, how am I going to pay my rent? Because I was really successful in my 20s in Silicon Valley. I made and lost $6 million over the course of 3 years. The losing part was painful. And but at the same time, like, I'm getting dumber every year. I can feel my brain not working. I don't know what's going on. And I went to the doctor and I said, I feel like I've been poisoned. Like, my brain just doesn't work. And it doesn't matter how much I want something. I just feel like I can barely, I'm pushing the accelerator to the floor and I'm slowing down and I'm pushing harder and there's nowhere else to push. And he goes, well, what seems to help? I said, vitamin C. And he goes, you should stop. It could kill you. I'm not kidding. This is a direct quote. Guy had a white lab coat and everything. And I fired him. I said, you're fired. I never paid for that appointment in one of my credit report. And no, totally. For 7 years, I'm like, screw you guys. And I was a little angry back then. Yeah. Bad coffee. Anyway, what I did then is I said, this is up to me. And every night I'd come home and I would just study biology. And then I would just try everything. And I became a human guinea pig, and I tried smart drugs and turned my brain back on. And eventually I figured out, wow, no one has talked about smart drugs in a long time. And I'm like talking to the experts out there in an anti-aging nonprofit group I ended up becoming chairman of. And 20 years later, like, someone really should have told me this, because at this point I've spent $1 million on my own biology. And when I started Bulletproof, I'd spent $300,000 in 15 years. I traveled to Tibet. I traveled all over the world. I talked to the world's top experts just because I don't want to be like I used to be. It's just not worth it. And so I'm kind of the corner case of the worst you could possibly be. And so if I could do this, I'm pretty sure everyone could do this.
It's pretty amazing. You mentioned in there you started experimenting. Self-experimentation is a big part of how you figured out all these things. How you discovered a lot of the techniques is you try certain things, see if it works. If it doesn't, try another thing. Has that process, has that ever been scary? Have you ever, especially now that you've reached a point where you've kind of got things in a great place, as you experiment or try new stuff, are you ever worried you might derail the whole system? Because you do have plans to live to 180, as I understand.
Well, just to be clear, at least 180. I don't want to put a cap on it. Just.
But that's we're gonna dig into that in a minute.
Right.
But seriously, when you experiment on yourself, and this is the only vessel you got, are you ever nervous? You ever encounter a scary moment?
Well, sometimes, but here's the deal: you're experimenting on yourself right now. Right? Do you know what you're drinking?
I would hope it's water.
Yeah, you'd hope. Do you know what's in it? I don't. But it's an experiment. I mean, the bottom line is we're all exposing ourselves to countless things that we're not tracking. Just because you don't pay attention to it doesn't mean it's not an experiment. And you know your experiment's going to end? You're going to die.
we all are.
I know, that's the point, right?
You said it in such a combative way. Like, I specifically, I'm the only one in this room who's going to die.
Exactly.
It's just not the case.
Right. So we're all taking risks that we don't acknowledge every day. What I'm doing is I'm paying attention and I'm looking at the return, the reward, and then deciding if I'm going to take the risk. And it turns out, usually the risk is very small and the return is pretty good. Sometimes the return is nothing. Sometimes, oh man, I got a headache and I didn't feel good for 2 days. But I'm not taking risks that are going to kill me or maim me or disable me that I know of. And I've had a few.
Ignorance is bliss, man.
Yeah, there was one time, actually here in New York, because real estate's expensive, there are very few bathtubs in hotel rooms here.
Fair enough.
So I was doing a lot of ice baths at the time, which really reset your metabolism. So I got here, I said, all right, I'm gonna do an ice bath. I'm gonna feel better after this flight. So I just took ice packs because there was no bathtub, and I laid on the bed and I fell asleep with ice packs
No, I know what you
covering like my abdomen, my chest, 15% of my body with first-degree ice burns. Oh my God, that hurt so bad. It was like swollen and red, and for 6 weeks it hurt.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, so yeah, that kind of thing. But you know what? That could have just been a dumb move. I don't know.
Could have been a dumb move. You know, talking about living to at least 180 and all the different experimental things that you've given a shot and tried. There was one that I read about recently in Men's Health that I'd never heard of. It sounded crazy. And then I heard you talking about it a little bit on your podcast with Rick Rubin, the stem cell therapy.
Oh yeah.
First of all, where'd you come across this? What is it? Because a lot of people look to you for the new technique, the new thing. Where are you looking that you found this?
All right.
Like,
I have been running an anti-aging nonprofit research and education group for 20 years. So I've had a chance to talk to the people doing the cutting edge work and become friends with them. I even lecture to 3,000 doctors at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. I don't have a medical degree. They just listen to me for some reason. I'm grateful for that. And these are smart people who are actual doctors. Just to be really clear, I'm a fantastic researcher and I'm an event correlation engine and I figure stuff out and I try it and it's pretty obvious if it works or not. Those guys are real healers. Yeah. And there's this knowledge transfer that happens. So when you get a chance to talk to 3,000 of them, 20 of them are going to come up afterwards and say, hey, I'm working on this stuff. You should know about it. Come to my lab and try it. I'm like, oh, yeah. And so that's how it works. And what I wrote about recently, what I had on Bulletproof Radio was the people who did the 6 hands, whole body stem cell upgrade, we call it. So for 4 hours, they knock you out. They pulled out a half a liter of bone marrow. It actually doesn't hurt.
Well, you're unconscious, right?
Yeah, I've had it done while I'm conscious too. It's
No
not
way, really?
It's not painful. It's just weird.
Huh.
You know, imagine that like fingernails on a blackboard sound.
Well, I'm not in love with that.
Yeah, so we don't like that, but imagine that happening on your skeleton.
No, that doesn't sound good at
It's
all.
creepy, but it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between real pain, like stubbing your toe hurts more than getting
for
bone marrow.
sure.
But you're like, oh, what is that horrible sound? It was
Yeah.
more like that.
Okay, cringy.
But I was asleep for this, so
Yeah.
it didn't bother me. Cringy, that's the perfect word. So
Holy Christ.
they took my stem cells from the bone marrow and from my fat and some other healing compounds. And then with the help of a neurosurgeon from Johns Hopkins named Marcella, they put the stem cells in my cerebrospinal fluid along the inside of my spine, every joint in the body, every vertebra in the spine, face, hair, reproductive organs, and pretty much everywhere else you can get stem cells all at once.
And then what? Because, so you've done that, which, first of all, kudos to letting people mess around with your spine. That's a scary ass thing for me, but obviously it's working out. Have you found are there tangible results? How long have you been doing it? Let's start there. How long have you been doing this? How many times?
I've done that whole body upgrade just once, but I've had 4 or 5 other stem cell treatments.
Okay.
And I write about them. I interview the people who do them. I even have a video the first time I had stem cells injected in my junk without exposing anything bad.
Stem cells in my junk. That's your next book, by the way, I believe, right? That is the title of the...
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things like, how do you do that on Facebook without getting in trouble? So I'm wearing my stupid toe shoes or something, and I'm laying in bed, and there's a blanket covering, the camera view, and then you just see this needle come down, and then I say to the doctor, this is Amy Killen, who's been on the show, I go, so this is gonna, increase length, right? And she starts laughing, and she goes, no, and she sticks a needle in, and then my toes go, wee, just like that. And it's the funniest video I think I've ever done. I put it at the Bulletproof conference. I showed people because, like, look, It was numb with lidocaine. I couldn't feel anything really.
Fair enough.
But here's the deal. When I'm 100, I'd still like to be a good lover, and I'm just taking proactive measures, and it's okay to admit to do that.
100%. There's nothing wrong with having that, with wanting, like, self-preservation. I totally get that. Do you know if it's working yet, or will you not know until you're 100?
My wife thinks it's working.
Fair enough. She's got the largest collection of data at this time. She's the most equipped to make that call. She has said definitively it is working.
Only data, just to be clear.
She's got the only collection of data. Sorry, I didn't mean to categorize that in an inappropriate way.
Totally teasing. I hope she's watching.
That's wild, man. But so okay, so there because the only thing I guess is like, are there short?
Is
Let's
it
forget about
working?
the junk for a
But
second. Have you
here's the
felt or
thing.
seen anything yet?
I can handle alcohol like I did when I was 20.
Yeah.
Like for years, I just quit drinking anything. Alcohol's bad for you. You shouldn't drink if you want to live a long time. It's just not good for you. But my tolerance went up to crazy person levels. And I've not experienced that through any other therapy I've done. I also get more deep sleep and REM, the dreaming sleep, in 6 hours than most 20-year-olds get in 8 hours. And I monitor it every night with my ring because I'm a dork. And so I did get younger in many different ways. All the pain and stuff I've had in my body, old injuries, it's gone. It's pretty amazing.
Let me ask you, what has the impact been? Because when did you start the blog? When did you start this whole thing? How long ago was that?
2012, like early 2012.
2012. Okay, so there's still smart devices, there's tracking and stuff like that. But I think the growth in that field's been pretty insane.
I was
the very recent.
CTO of one of the wristband companies that was purchased by Intel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd been in the smart devices space, but they sucked back then.
Yeah, they were kind of useless.
Yeah.
And not the case now. And so you get mountains and mountains of data. And sometimes you'll have multiple devices collecting similar data and whatnot. How do you use that? How do you apply that? What impact has that had on all your testing and stuff?
Do you have a friend who's like a coin collector or a stamp collector or something like that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. You're like, why do you do that? Right? Like, I don't know. It makes me happy. So there are data collectors who, look, I have all this data about myself. I'm like, great. I've got all these baseball stats too over here. Like, what are you going to do with it? So the deal is track what you hack. And that's actually one of the laws in Game Changers. Look, you only have so much attention. And even though you have a device helping you to gather the data, do you really want to think about like changes in your foot size over time if there's a device to measure that? I don't care unless I'm tracking. I want to change my foot size. Right? Yeah. In fact, if you could shrink my size 16s, I'd appreciate it. But aside from that, like what do you do? So with the ring, sleep is one of the most effective things because you get more testosterone, more all of the other reproductive hormones, growth hormone, memory consolidation. So if you get more sleep in less time, it's one of the highest return variables. So I wake up in the morning and I look at my phone and say, how did I do last night? And if I got a crappy night's sleep, I'm like, I wonder what I did. And usually I know. Yeah. And then I don't do that again.
Seems like a sound way to approach things. We mentioned that's one of the laws in the book. This book, your fifth book, I believe, going into your sixth book here, that's one of, 40-something? How many laws, if you had to ballpark? Do you remember the exact number?
There's 46 laws in the book.
46 laws in the book.
But what's interesting about Game Changers is 97% 5-star reviews. The people who reviewed it are just as the highest reviewed book. My other books that are older have more reviews, but the knowledge in here isn't just mine. It's from 500 people I've interviewed over 5 years.
Wild. Where do you start that process? When you have again, we're talking about data. In this instance, it's all the conversations you've had. Where do you begin? How do you look at that mountain and start to climb it?
It was the biggest challenge. So you have 500 transcripts of 500 hours of interviews. And then I read through all the transcripts, and I hired a statistician. And the one thing I did since the beginning of Bulletproof Radio, which is now a Webby Award winning 100 million plus download podcast, I said, all right, tell me your 3 pieces of advice for people who want to perform better at everything they do as a human being. And because I had a structured question, we could actually rank all those things. And the 46 laws are, here's what matters most to 500 people who've had great levels of achievement. So I don't want you to follow any guru. Like, don't follow me. Don't follow any person, because I'm a 6'4" guy who used to weigh a lot, and you might be a 5'4" woman who never used to weigh a lot. And we probably have some differences in what's going to work for us. But if you look at what everyone agrees on, from Nobel Prize winners to Navy SEALs to big authors to people who've just done good stuff, maybe the common elements are what we could all agree on and start there. So it's just, if I'd had that when I was 20, the amount of time it would have saved me on just going down a path that was useless would have been really valuable.
That's pretty amazing. I just try to think of how did you arrive at 46 with all of that, with all these great pieces of advice and techniques and information?
I was hoping it would be 48 because
You couldn't find two more.
the 48 Laws of Power from Robert Greene is one of the most impactful books I'd read in my career at the time. Robert Greene's in the book, and he's become a friend. So I said, all right, wouldn't it be funny? And I credit him in the acknowledgments because I sort of laid the book out the same way. But 46 is actually what the data showed. So working with a statistician, looking at the answers, clustering things, there's three things that people who just do big things in the world care about. They do things to be smarter, they do things to be faster, and they do things to be happier. And the people who figure out how to be happy have great achievement. And the people who say, I'm going to focus on the achievement but not happiness, they say they'll be happy when they achieve, and then they're never happy and they never achieve. And that was kind of my first half of my life.
That was the first.
Yeah, like I'll be happy when I have, in fact, when I made $6 million, this is in the book, the story. I said to a friend, I'll be happy when I make 10 million. Like, what kind of a 26-year-old jerk says that, right? It was, and of course, then I lost it all, probably because I had, a stupid attitude.
Yeah.
But that mindset of I'll be happy when is something that these people have conquered, and they just realize I'm going to be happy now, and because I have this happiness, I'm going to just bring it into what I do in the world. And all of them had some level of service to other people. And they talk about what they do in their communities, what do they do in the bedroom, actually, that has an impact on their life. And just having this open map just don't follow one path, just boil them all down, get the good stuff.
For sure. Talking about, we had mentioned earlier, you'd set the bar minimum 180. And talking about being happy now, with all that extra time, presumably that you're going to have you given thought to, if I live 2 lifetimes, how can you spend that time in a meaningful way? Or is it just be happy every day for as long as I can?
The thing that makes most people happy in the long term, and this is actually studied, it's service to others. So if you're not helping, you're probably not very happy. And yeah, you can go to a beach and you can have a Mai Tai or whatever, and you might be happy for a little while, but pretty soon you'll be bored. And then we're wired to improve ourselves. We're wired to solve problems. It's just the human condition. So to me, I look at this and I say, what are the other things that need disrupting? And for me, the biggest source of happiness and pleasure is I love to break stuff that's dumb. And it's called disruption. So I'm breaking big food right now. Hey, guys. Newsflash, people are willing to pay a little bit more for food that leaves them full and happy and helps them improve how they feel versus something that tastes good, is really cheap, and makes them feel like garbage, so they have to buy it again in 30 minutes. Like, we're all smart enough, that used to work, but we're not going to fall for it anymore. And so the big food companies are seeing changes in their sales because people don't want corn syrup. They don't want glyphosate sprayed whatever. They don't even want to eat industrial raised animals, and I don't either. I in my books, all of them, like, if it's not grass-fed, organic, and humanely raised, don't eat it. It's okay. And that, it causes a sea change in the environment around us. And this stuff, that's the stuff that matters.
When I was listening to the podcast, the episode I'd listened to specifically was the one with you and legendary producer, hero of mine, and I can't remember his name.
Rick Rubin?
Thank you.
I love Rick. He's such a profound human.
I almost said Butch Vig, which is not him at all. It's the other guy. But you and Rick were talking, and I've known of Rick's music a million times. I've only ever really seen or heard Rick through, tangentially through those albums and pieces that he's touched. So it was really fascinating to just hear you guys sit down and connect as people. One of the things, as someone who's just kind of getting his toes in the water and reading about all these different techniques and things you can do, it was intense when you guys were trading best practices, going back and
That was
forth.
kind of an advanced podcast.
Yeah, and talk about how you stack certain exercise and certain things like this. I just started thinking, how do you juggle this lifestyle, this change of life, and then just having your normal humans, this normal day-to-day stuff?
There are things you can do to your nervous system that are really worthwhile. I've spent 4 months of my life with electrodes stuck to my head doing high-end neurofeedback to replicate the state that you get from doing daily Zen meditation practice for a lifetime. So I've done 4 lifetimes of Zen meditation, or maybe 8 or something. And I actually opened a neuroscience institute that does that for executives and celebrities and people like that. It's called 40 Years of Zen. But in addition to this, I have 3 other companies. The company that makes my glasses, called True Dark, I have a company that makes a toxic mold prevention thing, because toxic mold is one of the reasons I was obese. I did a documentary on that. And I write these books, and I have this big podcast, and I'm CEO of a company that raised $68 million, and a husband and a father, and I sleep at night, and I like my life, and you can tell I'm not tweaked, right?
Yeah, not at all.
It's possible. But it takes getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
That was why, I mean, I could have written another book about biology and biochemistry, like Headstrong, my last one. This book is about, okay, you've got the energy now. What do you do with it? Like, what's the way to think? What are the things to stack up in your life that have these returns? And when you line up a few things right, you start with your hardware. Do you have enough energy in your body? Do you have enough energy in your brain? Then you got to do something with all that. And that's what this was for.
Do you ever schedule an hour or an hour and a half? I guess this would be considered meditation, but like of time to not do any of that? Like to literally carve out a section to just not?
My weekends are generally like that, except I have kids.
There you go. Yeah,
So I
much
can
for that.
tell you, my not doing anything on a weekend means doing something, but not something that's planned. So, you know, I might get woken up earlier than I wanted. You know, hey, Daddy, let's go play ping pong. I'm like, all right, we'll do that. But that's unstructured time. What I don't get as much of as I used to is, you know, I'm just going to sit around for a couple hours and, you know, do nothing. If I have a couple hours, I'm like, I should be writing my next manuscript because I want to get that out of my head anyway. But it's done because it's worth it. And it's not worth it for me. It's worth it for the time spent when people consume the content that I'm generating. And I did the math with 100 million downloads on my show. And if you figure the average person lives so many hours, it's something like hundreds of lifetimes. So if I make content that isn't worth the time people spent on it, I'm actually a mass murderer. Like I feel that
Dark ass way to look at it, Dave. That is a.
I feel a sense of obligation. Like, this show better be worth an hour of your time, or I do not want to release it because I might have to deal with it if karma's real. I mean, like, that's bad, right? So it better matter. That's all I could say.
I do a lot of these conversations. I've never felt more guilty at the end of one. I've never. That is. God damn, Dave.
I wasn't
That is
blaming or anything. No, I'm kidding.
just taking around with you, man. That's well. All right. So we've got the books on shelves now. There's another book always in your head, waiting to come out.
Called Superhuman.
Is it really? Is that the title?
It's the book about how I'm going to live to 180 and other people can too.
No shit. Really? Is that the next one?
Yep.
That's the one I want to read right there.
It's pre-sale on Amazon already.
Fantastic. So we've got that. You got your podcast. It's available everywhere podcasts are available. iTunes, of course, and all over the place. What else we got, Dave? What else we got to tell the people about Bulletproof products and all the major retailers right now?
Yeah.
What else?
The cool thing that just came out not so long ago is the cold brew Bulletproof coffee. And so a lot of the times you don't have time to make it. You know, wake up your roommates, your kids, whatever, with your blender. So you just open the fridge, get it out, or it just doesn't have to be in the fridge. And that's been a game changer for me. It's in
Where's
my
that?
hotel when I get there.
Where can we get that? Is that?
Whole Foods, Sprouts, Target, Costco,
Oh, all those places. that we're talking
Walmart,
about. Yeah.
Sam's Club.
All over the
think I
place.
said
That's
everything.
not a definitive list.
Kroger,
There's
yeah,
tons.
there's more.
There's so many more. And I wrote it down right. Bulletproof. What's the website? Was just bulletproof.
Bulletproof.com.
Bulletproof.com.
Yeah.
You got that early, didn't you? You got that.
I did.
Normally we'd go to the audience Q&A at this point, but I'm a jerk and I couldn't stop talking to you and asking you questions and ate up all our time. So I apologize on that one, but I want to thank you so much for carving out some time of your incredibly busy schedule to come hang out with us, man. It has been so cool to have you here and an absolute pleasure. I hope you had some fun with us.
I did, and thanks for doing a show that matters.
Of course, man. Thank you for being you, dude. Let's go ahead, guys. But make a round of applause right now and thank the great Dave Asprey for being here, man.